Well, hello everybody. It's Danny and Wanda back from Deepsouth Homestead in the sitting room here today, guys. It's scorching hot outside. This is what we do in the middle of the day. We come in, we can look at our pond back here and our cabin, our barn, and all this stuff, the pier, the high tunnels. This is just a place for us to sit and reflect. Now, today, Wanda and I were sitting around talking, and we get a lot of comments on our channel about how much food we grow.
Yeah,
And
they want to know, do we give it away, and all these crazy questions. So we want to kind of address how much it takes.
well, first of all, let's do it this way. Wanda and I grew up two totally different lifestyles. I had two kids. She had 5. I was always a prepper or a homesteader type lifestyle. Wanda didn't really come up in that type of hot lifestyle.
But we had gardens.
Yes.
My parents had gardens, so I was used to the peas, the beans, the corn, the cucumbers, the tomatoes. When I married my husband at the time, his family grew more gardens, bigger gardens. So he was used to the peas, beans, corn, tomatoes, and stuff. So my children had that, but we weren't ever really preppers. As far as prepping, we just lived year to year with the corn and stuff, the peas.
We were basically a lot like that. I always owned a farm. Ever since I've been a young man, I've had a farm of some kind. I always had my cattle, my chickens, my hogs, my crops, my vegetables. And I was a very avid hunter. I've done lots of hunting. I took lots of deer every year. I was an avid fisherman. I kept the freezers in the summertime stocked with filleted bass and stuff like this, catfish and all. And like Wanda was talking about the peas, beans, and corn, we had peas, beans, corn, pork, beef, and chicken and stuff like that, venison and fish and all. This was the way she and I both grew up, supplementing our food source with outside food sources rather than strictly being 100% grocery store.
Now, mine was, we didn't have the beef and the pork and stuff. We would have a deer maybe once a year, just things like that, but we hardly ever had the meat. So I would have to go, we had a local slaughterhouse that I would go get beef from, and I always bought my pork, my chicken, all that in town. I mean, always. So I always went to a grocery store. We had hot dogs and hamburgers and pizzas and chicken nuggets and fish sticks. And
Yes.
My kids grew up on that kind of stuff with the peas and the beans and the mashed potatoes and stuff thrown in.
Now, we both were guilty in our younger age of falling prey to the system to an extent. Now, we didn't fall into it 100%, but we did fall prey to the system. I every week would give my spouse X number of dollars for groceries that was allocated into our income, which is exactly what the system wants you to do. And ours, I used to give mine $100 a week to start with.
And that's what we had, $100 to feed 7 people. And I would go to town and spend that $100, and I knew what I needed to buy. Usually you'd kind of meal plan a little bit, and you knew how many suppers you had to have, breakfast and stuff, and you bought according to that.
But now, just like Wanda just mentioned, every week it was almost the same thing over and over and over and over from the grocery store, because you worked off of a budget and you had to make sure that your food fell within that budget, which is exactly what the system wants you to do. And as young people, it was bred into us. We didn't know any different.
It was like a every week thing.
Yeah.
Certain days of the week, usually Thursday or Friday, accordingly, because most of the time we had a certain day. we went to town on Thursdays and bought groceries, or we went to town on the Friday and bought groceries. That was every week. There was no getting away from that. You didn't miss a week or you didn't eat. And we never had prepped up anything other than peas, beans, and corn in the freezer. In later years, I learned to can, and I would can a few things and have it in my pantry, but I didn't can like I can now. We could have eaten all that in a month if we'd have just ate it solid.
Yeah, and we were a somewhat similar to that. I always had my own smokehouses. You know, I made my own bacon and I made my own sausage and all this type of stuff. So buying meat at a grocery store has never really been a big thing with us. Now, what I was guilty of was buying seafood. Because being from the Gulf down here, I would go once a year down to the boats and I'd get like 200 or 300 pounds of shrimp and bring them home, and we would dehead them, and you know, we'd put them all in the freezers. And I had several deep freezers my whole life. I've always had deep freezers. Canning was something we done some of, but it was mainly water bath canning. It was like jams and jellies and tomatoes and green beans and, you know, stuff like this. I mean, we would use the green beans and pressure canner every now and then for green beans and stuff because it was easy. It wasn't like it was a big deal. Now, we never canned any meat. That was something that we just didn't do because we had deep freezers, and we was always told electricity will always be here. So we were part of that system. But now, as Wanda and I got older, and we began to get a little bit wiser and realize how that we've been embellished and brainwashed to believe that we have to work a specific way. Like, I'll give you a for instance. Some people get paid weekly. Now, as a young man, I got paid weekly. Even though I owned my own business, I got a weekly allowance. You know, I got paid weekly. I'm sure Wanda's husband was the same way, got paid weekly. Now, some people got paid bi-weekly. Yeah. Some people get paid monthly. And groceries and commodities were bought accordingly. If you got paid weekly, you went grocery shopping weekly. If you got paid bi-weekly, you went bi-weekly. If you got paid monthly, you tried to buy 1 month and make it last all month. You know, you really had to budget out if you were going to survive. Now, I'll be the first to say, there was many times that $10 was all we had left after we paid for a note on this and paid for a note on that and bought groceries, power bills, gas for the vehicles, insurances and stuff. You know, we had $5 or $10 left for a week. We were so young it didn't even bother us.
No, and lots of times I never had any money left when I bought groceries because I bought food and toilet paper. See, you had to get your toilet paper, your soap, shampoo. Yeah. If you had a kid in diapers had to come out of that too. Yeah. You know, because all this fit into the grocery budget. Yeah. If somebody needed some new socks, that had to come out of that $100 too. Yeah. You know, so with 5 kids, I had to figure out, okay, who gets what this week and what can I get next week? And you had to shop on sale. Big shopper on sale right here. I would go buy all the sale items and see if there was anything anybody needed. And I bought secondhand a lot. Hand-me-downs, we were grateful for hand-me-downs because that helped. But buying groceries was just something we did. So Danny and I were sitting and talking about, you know, people asking us now, we raise a lot of our food, all our vegetables and our fruits, most of our meat now. I don't know that we buy any meat other than I buy a pack of sausage occasionally when it's out of season and we're not making our own. We would be out of season. I buy the link sausage from a friend that I know that makes it. But we don't buy meat. Right. So we buy just what we need. So we don't go to town very often. So prices have skyrocketed since we were young. Yes. And $100 would not even buy what we buy that's not even food. Yeah. You know, The little things like salt and pepper and sugar, and if I want some chips, or if we need toilet paper or shampoo or something like that, you go in Walmart and come toting one bag out is $100 now.
Yeah.
Used to $100, I could round a buggy over with $100. So everything's changed. So how do we do our gardening now? How do we figure what we're going to eat 365 days a year?
Okay, let's fast forward. Okay, that's what Wanda just did. She fast forwarded to the future.
Yeah.
Okay. we're way past back in the mom and pop stores now. We're into the new generational type stuff. There's tons of fad diets out there. You know, everything. I mean, I hear so many different names for diets. Words that I don't even know is words. Like keto, is that a word? You know what I mean? I mean, you stop, you think about all that, and then there was all these high carb diets. People buy accordingly. Wanda and I eat based off of how much we burn, how many calories we burn. Now, we run a true homestead. Mm-hmm. We burn a ton of calories. Now, just like an athlete can't live off of just a few calories, or their body will shut down on them, and they not have the energy and the strength and the stamina to keep going. Lots of people ask Wanda and I, how do y'all at y'all's age, how do y'all keep doing all you do? Well, it's based off of diet a lot.
Now, we eat 3 meals a day,
yes,
and we eat a couple of snacks a day. So I have to figure in what we're going to eat all year long, and two, it has to do, and at our age, with health.
Yeah.
Danny, when we married 10 years ago, could eat anything. I could always eat anything.
Yeah.
So if I cooked, it was not a big deal. But since he had his gallbladder surgery and the things he's had happening in the last 5 years, we have had to weed out all kinds of stuff that he would eat. So my cooking changes, which means you don't need things that you used to. Used to bake bread all the time. I mean, I was always baking bread. Then he went gluten-free because of his stomach, and so I learned to bake bread from gluten-free recipes. And then we figured out after a while, even that was messing with him. So we cut out bread altogether. If I want bread, I buy a loaf of bread and stick it in the freezer and take a piece out when I want it. But I don't bake bread anymore. We have our eggs. So let's start with breakfast. I've got to have my coffee, so you know I'm buying coffee and creamer.
Yeah. For breakfast, normally, I have what's called low blood sugar issues, hypoglycemic. It doesn't hit me all the time. I'm reactive hypoglycemic. Mine will hit me at any given moment, and I crash. So what I do is I try to eat foods that help my blood sugar to stabilize, and that usually in the mornings that's oatmeal, and I eat oatmeal, and my sweetener in oatmeal is my cane syrup that we make here ourselves. I mix that in with it, and then we have the blueberries that we pick that we raise. I put my blueberries, because they're loaded with the anthocyanins and different things in them that's good for the digestive tract and all, and good cancer preventers and things of this nature. And then I eat our home canned fruit along with it, which has a lot of sugar in it. Well, not necessarily a lot of sugar, because we don't put a lot in it.
I don't put a lot of sugar.
But it does have a higher sugar content.
Which would be our pears, our figs. We did do some satsumas, some apples. All these type things is what he uses first thing in the morning. I use my coffee, which his oatmeal, we do buy oatmeal because we don't raise oatmeal. But my coffee, then we have eggs because of our chickens.
Yes.
And he will eat an egg occasionally.
Well, let me say something about the eggs. I can't just eat an egg any way, because when you cook eggs in different ways, it has a different protein factor to it. Mm-hmm. Now, I have to have protein basically every 2 hours because of the way my system works. And I can't eat a boiled egg anymore. It messes with.
I can't eat boiled eggs.
And she can't eat a boiled egg anymore because it really messes with our system. Mm-hmm. I don't eat a fried egg anymore, which she does eat fried eggs. if I eat eggs, because I have to scramble them because of the protein factor and how it reacts with the body in it. So it took a while for us to figure these things out about our breakfasts in the mornings.
Yeah, and so he will scramble eggs when he eats an egg, and it's our eggs, so we know where they came from, what they're eating. We will do an omelet occasionally.
Yep.
And I like eggs and grits. Or I just have an egg and a piece of toast or a bagel. Sometimes I will buy bagels, every 2 or 3 months. I don't keep them all the time. It's not something that I buy every time we go to town. So breakfast, most of the time, it's half and half of what we buy and what we raise.
Yes, even on the breakfast thing, like grits, if we get grits from anywhere else, usually they mess with my system.
Yeah.
But if I raise my own corn and we make grits out of it, I usually have absolutely no issues from it.
And so we have been raising our own grits and cornmeal for a while, and we had our own bacon all year up until a week or so ago.
Yeah.
And we feel a little sad because we're out of bacon.
Yeah.
But we had our own bacon, and usually we make some sausage.
Yes.
And we have some patty sausage now, so we can eat patty sausage for a while. So these things are things we buy as well as things we raise. When it comes to our snacks, Danny loves his sweet potato dessert, and I usually that's usually what he has every day, morning and evening. That's his dessert. But I will make muffins or something, but I use corn flour.
Yes.
We've learned that he can eat a muffin made out of corn flour, so I add apples and some sugar and stuff to sweeten it up, so it's not like eating cornbread. It's more like a flour, like a little muffin. He eats some fruit occasionally.
Yeah.
And then I will make something homemade for me, or I will buy some kind of snack cake or something on occasion in town. I'm not as big on snacks as he is. He's bigger. He has to have his snack every day.
But it takes a lot of food for breakfast. It takes a lot for breakfast. I mean, people are asking us about, y'all can 30 gallons of figs? How can you eat that many gallons of figs? I go through a quart of figs every 2 days, 3 days, or something like that. And
the pears, I make a pear salad. So our fresh carrots, I shred them up and add pears to them and raisins. Now I have to buy the raisins.
Yeah.
But the pears are ours, the carrots are ours. And so in order to keep some when we don't have fresh carrots outside, I shred carrots and I put them in the freezer. And so when I thaw them out, I just take the moisture out of them and I make his carrot salad with our fresh pears and the raisins. Or I've learned to freeze dry them. And so I open a package of freeze-dried carrots and I make his carrot salad. So that's another snack thing that he really likes.
Yeah. But that's a lot of people ask us, y'all raise so many carrots. What do you do? Look,
we can a lot
We
too.
can a lot of carrots, but we eat a lot of carrots. I mean, that's one thing. Everybody goes, they don't understand how much that it actually takes for breakfast. So when we lay our gardens out, we don't try to figure out if we buy X number of seeds of this, or if we buy X number of draws of this, how many pounds of this are we going to get, or how many pounds of that are we going to get, or how many bushels of this are we going to get. We don't work that way. We just have certain size gardens over here. We know how many rows of what we're going to plant, and we know about what they're going to produce if we have a good year. Sweet potatoes, we like to get around 600 pounds of them a year. Mm-hmm. Irish potatoes, or our red potatoes and white potatoes, we like to get 250, 300 pounds of them a year. And everybody goes, how do you eat that many potatoes? Well, if you go back and check your diet and how much potato you have in all your diets everywhere, you'll realize you eat that much or more. We run out every year except for our Irish potatoes.
Now, most people will tell me I can buy a 5-pound bag of potatoes and I throw part of them away. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about.
No.
When we say you have potatoes in your diet, almost every box something has potato starch in it.
Yeah.
Of some sort. So you're getting potatoes somewhere if you added it all up.
Yep.
How many times do you stop and get a baked potato along with a steak? How many times do you stop and get French fries with your hamburger? That box of mashed potatoes that you picked up, or any of your potato products, hash browns, the whole 9 yards. So you see, you use potatoes without using a potato. Any soups has potatoes in them. So you really are using potatoes way more than you think. And so we have to grow ours. And if I want potatoes, then I have to have them on hand. And so I can a lot, and we eat fresh. Potatoes is one thing that will last for several months.
Oh, they last a long time here.
So we get to eat fresh. So if I want French fries, I slice up a few potatoes and make French fries. I've also canned French fries in a jar, and that works out pretty good. When you don't have fresh, it's better than nothing.
Yeah. And then it's the same thing with anything else. I mean, it's like cabbages. We know we probably need around 12 to 15 cabbages a year for us to be able to. Now, we don't do the sauerkraut. We don't do all that kind of stuff, fermenting stuff and all that. We just don't do that stuff. But we do eat like coleslaw, fresh coleslaw, fresh, we just love fresh cabbage. And a lot of your brassicas we do the same thing with. We don't do all this freezing broccoli and all that kind of stuff. We eat our stuff fresh. We're trying to train ourselves to go back to eating in season.
Yep.
Now, we do have lots of stuff that we've canned and that we freeze dried. Now, if you freeze dry, it's almost like eating in season when you rehydrate it.
But we save that stuff for when we don't have fresh.
Yes.
So, like, our sweet potato harvest is coming up in about a month.
Yeah.
So, we have run out of sweet potatoes fresh a couple of months ago, 2-3 months ago. And then the canned sweet potatoes, I use them off and on too while I'm still using fresh, because we like sweet potato fries and baked sweet potatoes and stuff like that. But I would use the canned sweet potatoes to make his dessert. And so about a week ago, I ran out of sweet potatoes. And we still have at least a month till harvest. And so I have freeze-dried sweet potatoes. I did, when I was canning, if I had some extra, instead of trying to run the canner a second time, I would take and mash them all up, put them on a freeze-dryer tray, and freeze-dry them. So now we're using our freeze-dried stuff. We don't stick this stuff up for 30 years.
No.
My thought is, if I need it, it's there, we're fixing to use it. When it gets time again for sweet potatoes to come in, if I have excess, I will freeze dry some more. We will definitely be canning some.
Yeah, and then we go like our corn. Everybody looks at our cornfield and goes, man, that's a big cornfield, Oh. Well, by the time you figure out how many is going to get lost to the weather, how many is going to get lost to the animals, and then how many you're going to actually harvest. So, see, we don't use the tips of the corn and we don't use the base of the corn. That all goes to the chickens. We just use the center part, the kernels out of the center of it, and we actually shell them all off. We put them in gallon Ziploc bags. They go into the freezer. And we don't, when we grind cornmeal, we don't just grind enough cornmeal for a year, because cornmeal is just like any other meal, like wheat or anything like that. Once you crack it up and break the germ in it, it starts losing its nutritional value. So we grind ours, maybe say bi-monthly or something like that, every 3 months or something. We'll grind it up and put it in the freezer for us to have our corn flour, our grits, our cornmeal and stuff like that. We like corn flour more than we do anything else, because when we cook fish, which we have our own ponds here, we eat a lot of fish, we'd rather use corn flour on the fish. We'd rather use corn flour on our breaded okra. Now, when she makes cornbread, we eat cornbread every day. And you use a good bit of corn flour mixed in with your cornmeal, because we don't like it to be real gritty. You know?
I've learned that the corn flour helps with the grittiness of the cornmeal. because when you mix both, it gives it more of almost a cakey like substance.
It's fluffy.
It's fluffier.
Yeah.
And it just goes further too.
Yeah, and then we have, from the cornmeal we have our grits and stuff like that we want to do polenta, if you want to call it that. We have all that stuff.
And we have our sugar cane, which we use as a sweetener. We usually make at least one batch of sugar cane syrup a year, most of the time 2, and some years we've made 4 and 5 batches, but according to how much sugar cane we have. And I think last year we made 2 good batches.
We made 2 real good ones last year,
And sugar cane is something that you can use in place of sugar, but and you can make sugar, but we've not done that. We get asked this all the time. No, we have not made sugar. But you can use it in place like of your desserts and different, like he said, in the oatmeals. You can put it on biscuits and stuff, but I don't make biscuits anymore, so I don't eat it on biscuits anymore. But if I made a biscuit, I have syrup for it. So we have a sweetener.
And even going back with the cattle and stuff like that, cattle for us play a multi-facet thing here on our homestead. The cattle keep us from having to do any bush hogging on the property because they eat all the fields down, and they don't. We may have to get out and bush hog some weeds off because there may be a few weeds that they don't eat.
Yeah.
But the cattle also produce milk, and from the milk you get your butters and you get your cheeses and all this type of stuff. And it's just an all-around win-win. Like the corn, when we start taking the corn shucks and the corn stalks and stuff like that, we throw all that in. The cows love that kind of stuff. Sweet potato vines, when we harvest all that kind of stuff, the cattle eat all that stuff. It's feed for the cattle. A lot of our garden stuff we throw over into the cows. Pea vines and peanut vines and stuff like that. You throw all that over into the cows. They love that kind of stuff.
And our chickens love anything of the
old vegetables.
Any of the ends that you cut off. They like, if you have a jar of stuff that goes bad or comes unsealed, you can feed it to your chickens. Some people worry about that it might be damaging to them, but a chicken eats almost anything.
A chicken is nothing but a tame buzzard. They eat anything. They'll eat dead stuff out in the yard. I mean, they'll eat anything that they come across.
They'll eat a lot.
Yeah.
So we feed the chickens a lot of things. Pigs are the same way.
Yep.
When we had pigs, you could feed them about anything. They would eat whatever you fed them. Lots of sugar cane
that was
stalks and stuff.
Yeah.
So the pigs would eat.
There's no waste on the homestead. I guess that's what we're trying to say. Along with the food, we don't really have any waste to our food system, because if we have bad vegetables, they used to go to the hogs. They still go to the chickens. Now, we don't feed bad vegetables to the cows.
No.
Because cows don't necessarily eat them. But if we have pears that start going bad and stuff like that, now the cattle will eat that kind of stuff.
And so we have a lot of fruit trees.
Yes.
But now we do have to fight the animals for not only our vegetables in the garden, but our fruit trees. The birds love fruit trees. So we recommend that you not just plant one something, plant several, because you're feeding you and every other creature that lives in your area.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, I can't believe you have so many fruit trees everywhere. And we plant more every year.
Yeah.
Because you lose a tree off and on to weather, or like some of our trees, the deer come through and rub on some of the peach trees and break them over, so you're going to lose a tree there. The birds get the berries, or they get the figs, or then we have the pears. Sometimes something will get a pear.
Yeah.
The peaches, we've seen squirrels run across the porch with peaches. So you have a lot of animals you're dealing with too with your fruit, but we like to have fruit. We've grown our own pineapples. We have 3 or 4 now right now.
We have 4 right now that are
growing. And that may not sound like a lot for a year, but if you space it out and you don't eat pineapple every day, we usually slice it and freeze it.
Yeah.
And we'll take out a slice or 2 for us and we'll grill it, or we'll just eat it fresh about once a month. And you'd be surprised, 4 pineapples go a long ways.
Go a long way. Then you boil the rinds on them. Now, I wouldn't advise boiling rinds on one from the store because of all the chemicals that they put on them. But we don't put any chemicals on ours. So Wanda actually boils the peelings and all down and makes some of the best pineapple juice. Oh, it is so good.
The pineapple juice is good for pork and stuff like that. You can pour it over it and bake your pork in it like a pork roast. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
And but you can also drink it.
Yeah, and so it's good for you. It's healthy.
And we have our satsumas and things like that.
Yes.
Usually have some oranges. Now every year changes because one year our orange tree will make abundantly, and the next year probably we don't get any or we get a few. One year we'll have quite a few peaches, and the next year none. So we never know exactly what we're going to have as far as fruit. So whatever we have, that's why we preserve as much of it as we do. We don't give it away because next year we may not have any.
Right.
Now, if our kids come over, we may share with them. But we don't go hunting people to give our food to. We share with some neighbors and friends as they come through.
Yeah.
But that's where we are with our food system and how we get through a year of food.
Well, I guess some of the best advice we can give you is figure what you eat in a meal for a day, break down what's in each individual part of your meal, and multiply that times 365 based on how much you ate that day, and you'll be surprised. I mean, there's times that we had over 3,000 jars worth of food canned, and we thought, well, we're set. And that only makes it for a year.
And you'll run out of stuff.
Yeah, and you go like, how did we eat that much? But then you start figuring 3 meals a day, 365 days a year. And a lot of people go, oh, you don't have to have that many meals a day. If you burn the calories like we do, sweating we start at 5:30 in the morning outside till dark at night when the weather permits, we're burning probably 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day, each one of us. And you've got to replace that in order to keep your strength up, especially the older you get. Now, when you're younger, you have a lot more stamina. But the older you get, lots of people go, oh, you don't need as much food. That's not true. You actually need more food when you get older than you do when you're younger in order to keep your metabolism going.
And so, if you think about it, 365 days a year, and you have to produce every bite of food that goes in your mouth. And we just told you, we don't produce every bite of food that goes in our mouth.
Right.
We produce, I'd say, if we had to just calculate it, at least 75%, because there is a portion that we buy. So, if you had to do every bite of food, what would it take for you to have enough for 365 days a year? Or do you have something fresh you can eat in season 365 days a year? Now, Danny and I are blessed. We live in the Deep South. We are in South Mississippi.
Yes.
We can raise something 365 days a year.
Yeah, we have a long growing season.
Whether it's the fish in the pond, he can go out and hunt. We do have our cows and our chickens. So we have meat. We have our rabbits. We can breed rabbits and we can have our meat. So we don't worry so much about meat anymore. We can raise our brassicas in the fall and the winter. We have high tunnels, so we can grow something. We usually always have garlic chives and onion chives available. Carrots. We let our carrots go this year we just quit eating fresh carrots from the spring. Yeah. So we've had fresh carrots for a while. We usually have something in the garden or something on a tree.
The high tunnels have made it where we can grow something to eat year round now without having any breaks in anything. I mean, like last year we had tomatoes all year.
Yes.
It was just wonderful. All through the freezes in the winter and everything, we still had tomatoes.
So it takes a little doing, and it takes a little preparation, and you got to watch the weather. Like now, it's so hot that I took all the tomatoes out of the high tunnels. We have no tomatoes, no cucumbers, no nothing in the high tunnels anymore because of white flies. But if you watch your high tunnel like you need to and pay attention, you can raise tomatoes this time of the year. It's just according to how vigilant you are.
Yep.
And we had them in the field, so we weren't worried. But you need something 365 days a year. You got to have something to eat 365 days a year. So how much food would it take for you?
And remember, the old statistics was 2 acres per person. The new statistics from the agricultural department is 9,000 square foot of garden space per person because of the technology we have today, the supplements we have to put in the soil to re-mineralize the soil and re-fertilize the soil and stuff like that. We can boost a lot more production from a smaller area. So stop and think about it. 9,000 square feet of gardening per person per year is what it takes to raise enough food. So guys, I hope that today, I know the video may have went a little long, but there's so much to talk about, and we just scratched the surface, okay?
Because food covers a lot.
Food covers a lot.
And two, we didn't even get into all the chemicals and the preservatives and the craziness that they're doing with lab meat and all this stuff. And it makes you almost afraid to go to the grocery store now.
Right.
And even with bread, the changes they're making in bread has me to the point that I told Danny, I said, I don't know that I'm going to buy bread anymore.
It's toxic now. It's not even fit to eat.
Maybe that's some of my health problems, is that I am buying a loaf of bread and eating a bagel occasionally and stuff. So that could be, health problems that you have that you don't have to have, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Remember what they used to say, the whiter the bread, the faster you're dead. So anyway, guys, we got to get out of here. Thank you so much for sitting with us and enjoying time and fellowship together. I hope that today the video was a little bit educational and show you a little bit why. A lot of people ask us about our food. We thought we'd share about why we grow what we grow, why we try to put up the quantity that we put up, and just give you a little heads up about what it takes to have enough food to last for a year. And then if you have a crop failure, you still have a little bit the next year. So thank you guys once again from Deep South Homestead.